Hi everyone, it's Amanda here, and I just wanted to offer some additional support that can help ground this self-study work in your life and perhaps bring a new energy to the relationship we have with those parts of ourselves that are really working to protect us. But these parts are often the parts that we're shaming, such as the parts that don't feel safe enough to speak up or that choose not to express its feelings, the parts of us that maybe procrastinate, the parts of us that continue replaying cycles in our relationships with other people, with ourselves, and with the world at large, that result in us feeling the same unpleasant, uncomfortable, undesirable feelings that we have felt for years. It can be so challenging to bring reverence and compassion to the parts of us that feel stuck, or the parts of us that feel like they're lacking in courage, or that they're still trying to find their voice. There is a tendency to have this feeling like we need to change and transform ourselves as quickly as possible. That whatever is causing us distress, we need to figure out what that is, and we need to stop doing it, or we need to become something completely different as quickly as possible. And we believe that if we do that, we will be a more whole individual or a happier individual. But we all know that what happens when we take that aggressive approach that says, this aspect of myself is unwelcome, I want to be completely different, so I'm going to try to weed that unwelcome aspect from my life. This very aggressive approach. With that aggressive approach, we create more fragmentation within ourselves. And fragmentation is basically just exiling certain parts of ourselves, telling certain parts of ourselves that they're not welcome, or that they're bad, or that they're wrong. So this is where self-shame comes in, self-judgment, guilt. We're not accepting all parts of ourselves. And what also happens when we take that aggressive approach to fixing ourselves is that we create more resistance. So if we're trying to speak up more in relationships, we've placed so much pressure on speaking up that we've built it up to be this impossible thing, or this thing that we don't know if we have the power to do it. And so that can create more resistance. But what also happens is that we are missing an opportunity to get to really know why we have been operating in the way that we have for so long. And there's one reason that we operate in the way that we do, and this is universal. We operate in the way that we do in order to feel safe, seen, valued, and loved. The way we operate is called self-preservation. It's a survival strategy or a life strategy. It is the way that our subconscious mind, also known as our inner child, has learned to function in the world in order to feel safe and avoid danger, in order to feel seen or valued rather than feeling the pain of irrelevance. So when we spoke up as a child, or when we cried as a child, and a parent told us not to do that, or they perhaps criticized us or even made fun of us for being weak and vulnerable, we learned that being vulnerable and expressing our feelings was unsafe in that environment. And so to protect us, our inner child vowed to not speak up. It said to you, I love you so much that I am going to do whatever I can to keep you safe. And since I know that it's not safe to speak up, I will not speak up because I want you to be safe. This is the agenda of these deep aspects of ourselves. This is the agenda of all of that programming that we still carry. Programmed to behave in a certain way based on the experiences we had early in life. And we often talk about that programming or that social conditioning as if it's an awful thing, as if we can't be spiritual if we're still playing out that program. And of course, this is a lie. There's nothing that we could ever do that is not spiritual, that is not contained within our spiritual experience of playing with being human. So today we throw out all that we ever learned about certain parts of us being bad and wrong. Today we throw out the self-shame, and we release the inner conflict and the inner resistance. We release this by creating a brand new relationship with ourselves. So here is the homework to start shifting this relationship. When you notice that you are suppressing a feeling or procrastinating or giving yourself totally away and being unboundaried in a relationship. So these are the three things we're going to focus on. There may be more, but when you notice that you are suppressing your feelings, not expressing yourself, not honoring your feelings by making the decisions that align with those feelings, when you notice that you are procrastinating, doing things that you know would help create a feeling of spaciousness in your life, in your home and in your mind, when you're procrastinating those things, or when you're just giving more of your time and energy and resources away than you really have available to give, when you're being unboundaried, when you're being that yes person to everyone. Step one is notice that you're doing it. Journal about it. Journal. Today, I am noticing myself feel this way. I'm noticing myself act in one way, yet feel a different way on the inside. Journal that. And the next step is to stop and say, hello, inner self. I can see that you are suppressing what you feel, or I can see that you are procrastinating, or I can see that you are unboundaried. I can see this behavior. And I know that you're doing this to protect me. I want you to know that being your most authentic expression is always safe with me. I want you to know that we do not need to withhold, procrastinate, or be unboundaried to feel safe in the world. I'm here to show you how we can be safe without hiding, without being immobilized, or without giving ourselves away with no regard for our own boundaries. So this is just an example of a dialogue that you can open up. You're noticing the limiting behavior. Number one, you notice the limiting behavior. Number two, you acknowledge the limiting behavior by opening a conversation with this part of yourself. Number three, you thank this part of yourself for having this behavior because it's trying to protect you, and you are so grateful for that protection. This part of you that loves you so much that it just wants you to be safe. And number four, you let this part of you know that you also wish to be safe and that you'd like to show it how safe we can be, even when we make a new choice. This is something that will take time, but so much is going to change for you that it's impossible to talk about it in a short talk here, but so much is going to change in terms of your inner resistance and inner turmoil. Your intuition will increase because you're going to be listening to parts of yourself that you haven't listened to before. Your feeling of being loved is going to increase because you're literally bringing the parts of yourself that you used to push away into your loving awareness, and you're forming a relationship with it that is symbiotic and that is completely honoring and accepting. And so there are all these shifts that will continue to take place at the level of your psyche and your body as you work with this practice. Grab your pen if you don't have it already, and I'm going to say once again these final steps of this process. When you notice yourself having a limiting behavior, like the behaviors we discussed in this, when you notice yourself having a limiting behavior, number one, really notice it. Name the behavior. Notice it. Number two, acknowledge it. Acknowledge it as a behavior that is there for your own protection. Number three, thank it. Thank yourself for having this behavior and caring about your safety so much. Thank you for protecting me all these years. Thank you for intuitively knowing how to protect me in an environment or atmosphere that felt unsafe. Thank you. And perhaps even picture your inner child there as you thank it and hug it. And then number four, let this part of yourself know that you care about your safety as well, and that you can still be safe if you make a new decision. dear inner child, I'm going to show you that we can still be safe if we speak up for ourselves, or that we can still be safe if we get the task done early rather than later, or that we can still be safe if we say no to certain things because we need more time to ourselves. I'm going to show you some new ways that we can also feel safe. And what you're doing when you do this is actually expanding your window of tolerance. And your window of tolerance is something we'll talk about in future sessions, but we study it a lot in trauma therapy with the window of tolerance is basically the range of activity that you can be engaged in with your nervous system staying regulated. And there are certain things that once we get into a certain environment or engage in a certain activity where our nervous system is not regulated, where we either completely shut down and become immobilized, or where we become hyper aroused and everything feels like a threat and we just want to run away, or maybe even get a bit combative or argumentative. So what we're doing through this exercise that I just shared with you is expanding our window of tolerance. We are teaching our inner child / nervous system how to feel safe doing things that are a little outside of its comfort zone. And it's a gradual process. So remember the importance of being incredibly loving and patient and gradual with this instead of being aggressive with this. You know, when you get really aggressive with a child shuts down. Well, your inner child is also going to shut down with you if you get really aggressive with it. So it's time to end the days of shaming and guilting and criticizing aspects of ourselves, and instead welcome those parts in the embrace of our very own love. And here we begin to end those long-standing inner wars that have been going on in our lives for so long. So try this exercise, report back to me, let me know how it's going. I want to hear, and I look forward to connecting with you all again very soon.